Welcome to the Mile High Podcast. This is your host, Dr. Daniel Knowles. Thank you for joining us. And wherever way you are enjoying this, whether it be Stitcher or iTunes or YouTube or Facebook or whatever social media channel that you are tuned into, make sure you hit subscribe so you never miss any Mile High tick. And of course, make sure you reserve your seats for being on higher ground with us live in June. Yes, Mile High comes early this year, June 2nd to 5th. And we are very excited to introduce right now to this podcast, the one and only Monika Buerger, who graduated from Life West back in 91. And yes, she just had her hands up. She did. Her hands do work now. After a very recent injury, so she can actually do that and move them. And now practices in Idaho. And she has done so many things for the chiropractic profession, from being involved with the Pediatric chiropractic textbook, involved with Heidi Havock's research and the World WDC, Women Doctors of Chiropractic, and LCW, and her own program, Developing Minds, which I'm sure we're going to dive into a little bit. And we're so honored and thrilled to have her on stage at Mile High for the first time. So thank you for joining us today, Dr. Monika.
Hey, I am so thrilled, and I'm so thrilled because I told you before this show, but I have to mention this.
Please.
This is the first time in almost 10 weeks that my hand is not in a brace and that I don't have facial bandages on. So I'm excited to share that with you guys because my next step is going to be able to walk on stage June 2nd and 5th. Where am I over there? So
wow.
I can't wait.
That's so exciting. I know what that experience is like, being injured, healing up, and then being able to I get to be on stage and share. You'll be so energized and so exciting. And so great to see you without a surgical mask and without your hands being bandaged. And it's also such a great testament to innate, how much credit we give. And when you have that kind of experience, to know man, our bodies are such amazing healers.
I will tell you that as crappy as it's been, the foundation of knowing what we know has been the key to healing. And we all know that, right?
Yep.
But I have a very interesting experience that I really want to bring to Mile High. Mm-hmm. And about my own, I'm tying it into what we're going to see. Daniel, right now, the people we're seeing in our offices, and especially the little fiddle farts. So I use that term as kiddos for the kiddos. So everybody out there, just know that it's an endearing term that I use for the children, fiddle farts, okay? But what they're going to be walking into our offices with is a nervous system.
Right.
A nervous.
I hear you.
Stressed out. They're nervous after this 2-year crap show of what we've been diving into. And I cannot wait. As down as I'm still sitting in a wheelchair right now, so I still have limitations, but it is going to be Buerger Unleashed. I promise I will keep my words clean, but I just can't even. I'm stuttering and stumbling because what I have learned and what we're going to be seeing coming into our offices, I guarantee you guys, there is no other profession that gets it. And we have to get it now. We have to get it right now, Danny. We have to get it right for the future generations. And so, yeah, I cannot wait to tie what we're seeing already in the neurodevelopmental realm, because we're seeing it already. We're seeing the research. We're seeing it come out, what's happening with these little fiddle farts, what's not happening with them, actually. We're seeing what's happened to moms during this crap storm. And what I've experienced in my own rehab, unless you understand a nervous system, not the nervous system, we understand the nervous system, a system that is so stressed out, that it's so nervous, unless you know how to work with that, you could actually potentially do more harm than good.
Well, and this is so true. And I can't wait to here, Monika Buerger Unleashed. That's kind of sounds pretty intense and pretty amazing. And that's what the thing is. The world has all been shut down and in fear and in defense. And what is our field? We're about liberation. We're about liberating lives and trusting rather than being fearful. Right?
Oh God, yes. And that's true. If you guys look, if you don't trust an innate and a body's ability to heal, you are not going to pass that on to those that you come in contact with and those you work with. And I will guarantee you, I'm going to tell a story, very likely for the first time, maybe 1 or 2 times before June, that you have to understand. I mean it, you guys, you have to understand what people are walking into you like. And if you understand and you can relay that, and your hands can relay that message and that confidence and that trust in innate to that person, you are going to change their life in ways that you can't even imagine.
See, that's a really important point. Relaying trust. So you and I and many of us had this experience of practicing during what's happened in the last 2 years. I don't even know what to really call it anymore, but whatever we want to call it. Okay. And in that time, there was a lot of fear still going on. And let me ask you this. Did you find in practicing and taking care of people, the people that were coming in to see you, a high level of gratitude?
They're coming in with a high level of gratitude?
No, them having a high level of gratitude for coming to see you, for what they've received from being in your care.
Oh, it's absolutely. They have nowhere else to turn that's giving them the, where else are they going to turn?
My experience was the gratitude was so high. I mean, gratitude is always high and fun in chiropractic offices, but it was like turned up.
Oh,
during that.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And I will tell you, the gratitude's going to keep turning up notch after notch after notch, because there is a crap storm of backlash coming from this crazy period.
Right.
Okay. There's a freight train coming.
Right. Absolutely.
There's not a lot of people that are going to be able to stop the freight train, that know what it's going to take for people to regain trust and true health, and their knowingness, their ability to know from within that they can heal. There's not a lot of people who's out there giving that story.
Right. Exactly. Well, that's what chiropractic's foundation is. The major premise is about trusting life. It's about trusting. There's a universal intelligence, and that's about trusting life. So talk a little bit about that now, right now. What are some of the consequences that you're seeing and the world seeing, especially in children, relative to the pandemic?
Here's the dealy-wop, you guys. We know from before this crap storm, I'm trying to keep my mouth clean. Okay. It just fires me up because it just ticks me off so much. We know before all this crap storm that prenatal stress is the neurobiology of disease. So I'm kind of weird. I like to study chiropractic, neuroscience, neurodevelopment, neuropsychiatry, metabolism. I study all these areas, and I bring them together to the basis of chiropractic. Mm-hmm. Prenatal stress has been hands down designated as the neurobiology of most all diseases, physical, mental, emotional diseases. The stressors women have been under, and the research is coming out. I'll present some great papers in June that what we're seeing with regard to the birthing process, to mom's prenatal stress, and I'll tie together, obviously I'll tie the chiropractic neuroscience together. I have to, right? We'll tie that in, but we'll also look what we're seeing. These stressors are what are going to lay the foundation of neurodevelopment on these little fiddle parts. We are already seeing they are delayed. pandemic babies are delayed in their neurodevelopment. We have the studies coming out already, but what I like to do is I like to tie the rabbit holes together. How, why, and what does that mean for the future of those little fiddle parts? It's not, Danny, that they're just delayed on fine and gross motor skills. We need to understand what that means for their future. That means things tied together like scoliosis and asthma and Tourette's syndrome and ADD and autism. We can put all these labels in front of that. So if we understand that these delays we're already seeing because the stress and the crap storm of the last 2 years, the trajectory of that 5, 10, 20 years from now is profound. If we understand the freight train, we understand all the cars on the rails and what they mean, we have the ability to stop that train from derailing.
And so adults and children and adults, there's a huge impact of the adjustment of a person shifting from defense physiology to ease, from sympathetic to parasympathetic. Can you help our listeners understand a little bit about that relationship?
Okay, here's the dealywop. I'll try to pare this down very simple. I call it 3-brain complex, all right?
Mm-hmm.
The cerebellum, the little brain, that is said to house maybe 80% of our whole brain's neurons. That and the prefrontal cortex, I say, grow up together. They're like brother and sister. They mature and grow together over time. The cerebellum actually puts the brakes on the prefrontal cortex, keeps it in check. Well, why the heck do we care about that? Because the prefrontal cortex puts the brakes on our fear monger, the amygdala. Mm-hmm. Where is everybody living now? Fear.
Right.
We know that stressed out parents will lay the stress response of the offspring. We inherit our ancestors up to about 14 generations back. We inherit their stress response. All right, so here's the deal. Where does chiropractic fit in? We know from some brilliant researchers in the chiropractic and neuroscience realm that when we do an adjustment, we help modulate sensory input into the cerebellum, the prefrontal cortex, the default mode network. I won't get into all those. We'll get into it in June. Mm-hmm. Here, the basic foundation is this. If we can help reset the nervous system, bring on board those areas of the brain that keep us grounded and consciousness and reasonable and rational, and we can evaluate our situation, it keeps that amygdala, that fear monger, in check. It keeps them dampened down. That is the state of well-being. That brings us out of sympathetic dominance, out of a pro-inflammatory status. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. It is grounding. It allows us to be a human at a conscious level, and it allows us to heal.
Now, with that, I'm almost afraid to ask, what are some of the things that are going to happen in the years to come for people that, as an effect of the pandemic, don't have access to getting their nervous system to be able to reset through something such as chiropractic? How is that going to be impactful?
What's that going to look like, you mean?
Yeah, exactly.
Okay, here's the deal. The biggest areas studied in the neuropsychiatric world is the connection. Danny, it's not about brain reasons, it's about connections. It's about good relationships in your brain having good connections. The biggest connection studied in the neuropsychiatric world is a connection between the amygdala and the prefrontal cortex. If we get stuck in that amygdala, I can give you a number of labels: schizophrenia, autism, label after label after label. That is the biggest connection seen with those in neuropsychiatric institutions, on neuropsychiatric meds, on not knowing reality. If we don't know our own reality of where our body is in space and how to move through space, that leads to it potentially leads to a psychiatric condition.
Right.
Which leads to those not being rational, not being reasonable, not having impulse control, which leads to the classic O of those that have suicidal ideation. What are we seeing on the rise? It's the classic MO of the person that feels they have no other option but to go grab their AK-47 and shoot up a school and shoot up a mall. I can go line item after line item after line item. The potential of what we're going to see decades from now is horrendous unless we understand how to calm a nervous system, how to bring back on board the circuitry to allow a person to be healthy and reasonable and rational. So what you're seeing down the road, it's astounding when you really think about it. Now, not just psychiatric conditions. Because those areas of the brain are going to be responsible for vagal tone and the anti-inflammatory cascade. Mm-hmm. Inflammation is the root of most illnesses, whether it's a metabolic illness, right, a degenerative illness, MS, Alzheimer's, Parkinson's, a psychiatric illness, diabetes. I can go list after list after list. So when you ask me what we're going to see in a decade from now, it's astounding.
Right.
From neuropsychiatric illnesses to metabolic illnesses to neurodevelopmental labels to neurodegenerative labels.
And, the amazing thing is how much of a gift we have that people they don't know that we impact that. And the more chiropractors get on board realizing that we impact that, the more we can make a difference versus thinking, allowing the world to pigeonhole us into musculoskeletal things. And then not really being able to give the gift that we have at the level that it can be.
Absolutely. It is not a pain. It is a brain situation. Part of what I want to share with the world, I'm not ready to share it all yet because it's still kind of raw. When you don't understand how to heal a nervous system and you push it and push it, there can be very detrimental effects. That's the outside in approach, Danny.
Right.
Okay?
Right.
When you understand that a person's coming to you in what I call limbic lock and load mode,
right?
They're stuck in their amygdala, right? There's a lot of bad things that can happen. A lot of bad things, okay? I had a healing cry, whatever you want to call it, but the traditional model of rehab was pushing me from an outside in limbic load mode, and it wasn't good. And I actually had an old friend from my undergrad days who's a PT, mm-hmm. and reached out to me and said that, and she goes, they have stressed your nervous system way beyond its capacity, and you cannot heal like that. For her to talk to me in my lingo, in my knowingness, was the biggest freaking relief and took me out of a really dark place. Mm. We as chiropractors need to understand that's what we do day in and day out.
Right.
And we need to own it, because I am telling you, the people that are coming into after this 2 years of holy bleep are coming to you with, a lot of them are coming to you with no hope.
Right. Right. Absolutely. And this is what it's what I teach people all the time, and what I teach also. Now, your Developing Minds program, that's going to be even more important now for people. I mean, it was important before, but now it's going to be even more crucial that people understand being able to interact with patients, adult and children, both, because the adults are going to be also very, very impacted, obviously. So what are some things you can tell? No, it's okay. What are some things you can tell people that are listening that they need to watch for in their practice with children, especially, but adults as well?
One of the things I think one of the key things is, we've always taught this, but less is more. With adults and kiddos, they're so toxic. We got to remember, whether they had the jibby jab or the natural hit, I'm not talking about those kind of toxins. When somebody's stressed out, they're going to be in a pro-inflammatory shift. Right. They're not going to be able to handle as much input to the CNS quite yet. So low, slow, and safe. You might have to dial it down a little bit on, don't adjust everything. Close your eyes and use your hands to feel the vibration, what that person can handle, because they can't handle as much anymore. Look for it. Please understand, and we'll talk about this in June. Please understand, if a little fiddle fart is low tone or not reaching certain things, I really want you to understand what that means in the long run. 5, 10, 15 years in that child's health. It's not just about them not crawling at that point in time or not tummy time. This is about the shooter down the road. This is about the suicide teen down the road. So taking a different lens when you see these things in your office, it's not just a musculoskeletal thing that they can't, bring their hands to midline or push up. It's so much more than that. It really is. And we have the ability to understand that and do something about it.
Mm-hmm. And that's the thing, is that if we have that conversation in our office, the flood of people that you can help is huge, and compared to allowing yourself being subjugated to one area, meaning, and I don't mean that you're being subjugated to the spine, because the spine and nervous system is what we do, but I mean subjugated that the impact is less than we realize, or even teaching people how big an impact is versus teaching them it's a smaller impact.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And you know what, that obviously you got me fired up, because it's fuel. It's fuel to our fire. If you understand it, you can't give up.
Right.
You can't give up on the future.
Mm-hmm.
So I think it's just as much for us to understand it and to go through hardships and learn and just be reinforced about innate and our own healing capacity, and to own it. And you, if you own it and you know it, and you can't help but pass that energy on to those that come into your office. And you may not want to work with kiddos. You might want to work with, but it's really across all ages and all stages of how we can affect their neurodevelopment to their neurodegeneration.
Oh, absolutely. Now, so with that, do you foresee that helping people understand that we're not talking about bones and joints, that we're talking about life, that we're talking about the neuroscience of the impact of an adjustment? Do you foresee us being able to do that more effortlessly or than we have before? And let me say why I asked this. My experience in the last 2 years is people have been more hungry and more wanting what we had than I experienced before that. They needed it just as much. They needed chiropractic care, and they needed a neurologically focused chiropractic care as compared to a musculoskeletal focus. and they were more open to it. The ones that were coming in and are coming in are more open to, I have prioritized my health differently than they did before.
And I totally agree with you. And I think more than ever now, people are going to start realizing and prioritizing their health. And if we can just, we can use a few simple lingos and analogies and stuff, and people get it. And they're like, okay, you know, I don't want to go down that pandemic crap storm again. And I don't want to be forced into fear. I want to own it. And I want the ownership, and I want the power to live my life the way I want to.
Right. So what are some things that we need to do in our communication with people in our office, especially parents, especially kids, but everybody, to help them understand, to make that connection between their nerve system and their life, and their nerve system and their spine, and them being in defense physiology? What are some ways that we can better help them make that bridge?
First of all, we own it, understand it ourselves. Secondly, I use very simple things like, okay, let's say I have a fiddle fart that's not using one side of their body, or not rolling, whatever it is, okay, or even an adult, okay, and I'll say, why is that hand not being able to come to midline, or what? Why is it asymmetry? What controls the function of this arm? The brain controls the function of the body. So when you're getting adjusted, I'm not just singling to the spine. I'm not just affecting the spine. I'm affecting the messages that the brain can send to the body, and the body can send to the brain. And whole health, physical health, mental health, emotional health, is founded around the brain and body being able to respond to each other and be comfortable in its environment and the state that they're in.
Right.
You know, if I give, let's say I do an adjustment, and then I say, okay, I want you now, mom, to do some crossovers for baby, because they're not crawling or whatever it is. I say, you're not doing a physical exercise. You're doing a brain exercise for that. Mm-hmm. The adjustment allows me to open up the pathways. So now that the brain can register more what's going on in the body. And by the way, mom, we have that in our chiropractic neuroscience. We see that when we adjust the spine. Did you know that even a stroke patient, even somebody with a stroke that's not using their lower limb, do you know that that after the adjustment, they had a 95% gain in being able to use that affected limb that was paralyzed. So little Johnny right here, that they're saying, oh, you know, just grow out of it, or he's dragging his limb. What we want to do is we want to open up the gateways, mom. We want to do an adjustment so that now his brain can send messages down and better use that lower limb. And you know what? When that happens, he's using both sides of his body and both sides of his brain, so that later on, when Johnny goes to school, he can use his whole brain that's needed for learning, attention, and behavior. That's pretty cool, huh?
And here's the thing. I'm so glad you used gateways as your term, because that's what we use. I, as you know, I do network spinal, and we talk about accessing a gateway, putting a force into a gateway as compared to moving a vertebra. And because it creates, you want to go where the piece already is and have that piece spread through the body rather than compete with the area of defense, right? That's the focus of how I work in people. People have to understand that their body has such an incredible capacity to heal, but if they're living in fear, they're living in distress, they're living in fight or flight, their ability to trust that when you're saying that, the words coming out of your mouth or that in your practice, that's not, they've been fed fear, so it makes it more difficult for them to trust that, because that's what they've been told is the only way to heal.
And trust it, that is the crux of healing. That is the crux of life, what you just said.
So this is going to be very exciting for you to share when you're on higher ground in Colorado. what would you advise for people? What are some things, well, first of all, how can people get in touch with you more between now and then?
You can go to either, I have a couple of programs. One is called Intersect for Life. So you can go to on Facebook and just look up the Intersect for Life. It's an intersection of mind, body, spirit. That's why we use intersect. The intersection of above, down, inside, out. So Intersect for Life or Developing Minds. Our website is devmindsu.com, or Developing Minds program. And if you want to message me through Facebook or something, shoot me a message. And, I'm happy when I can to reach out and help as much as I can.
What can you tell people to do now in their practices, whether they're taking care of adults or kids, to help them have the people shift more from sympathetic to parasympathetic, or to a more balanced coordination of the two?
I think it starts with, again, knowing ourselves what to do. You can do you have to be balanced too.
Mm-hmm.
Sorry, guys, you really do. Because kids and animals really pick up on your energy. Okay, so you got to get your crap together.
Right.
We can do some very simple things, is teaching them about, a gas pedal mode versus a brake pedal mode. Are you running from a tiger that's not really there? What can you do to that? Let's get some mindfulness. Help me out to help the adjustment hold. Can you do 5 or 10 minutes a day of some mindfulness? Well, what's that? I don't know. Maybe you like to walk in nature and not think about, get out of your head. Maybe some deep breathing. Maybe some meditation. Find out what their capacity is. It might be 2 minutes. Don't expect too much of them, right? It might be 2 minutes, but give them some tools to start enhancing vagal tone. You're all about vagal tone too, buddy. I know. I love you. Enhancing vagal tone. Exercise. Get out in nature. There's a thing called nature deficit disorder. We've all got it. We shit those people up. They got stuck in their houses for fucking, couldn't go outside because I swear if you poked your head out, you'd kill somebody by looking at them because you had COVID, whatever.
Right.
But get them grounded and back in their body, humming, meditation, like I said, walking. Let's start getting some positive things. Put positivity in your office. Get some mood lighting. Turn down the lights, you guys. Don't have too much stimulation, right? Have some mood lighting. Bring down. Get the freaking cell phones out. Tell them, don't be on your cell phone when you're on here. Mm-hmm. Don't be texting and stuff like that. Mm-hmm. Sit quietly. Mm-hmm. Allow your nervous system to decompress before you get adjusted. Mm-hmm. Forget Facebook and all that stuff. Mm-hmm. And just learn to be.
Nature deficit disorder. I'll tell you, I grew up in New York City. There was a little bit of nature deficit disorder then.
Absolutely.
But being in Colorado, it definitely helps, which is another reason to join us in June. Wow, those are really important things. And it's so easy to get into autopilot. And people are autopilot with the news. They're autopilot, in what they're being fed. They're autopilot with the media. They're autopilot on their phones and their devices and so much of their life. And that bandwidth for them to access more and a potential and possibility is limited when they're in autopilot as compared to them shifting that. So, wow, this is going to be a lot of fun, isn't it?
I am ready because you know what? I am so ready to get out of this. I swear I'm going to walk, hopefully without a brace or anything. And then you guys will really be in trouble if Buerger gets totally unleashed.
Well, we're excited and we're really grateful that even with your recent injury, you're able to make it out and be on stage. And I will be the first to be cheering for seeing you being able to do that. And, we forgot to mention that also right now, it happens to be National Women's History Month now in March. And so this is, really important to see someone like you, an impactful chiropractor, female, as a leader, and we need more of those in our profession.
Oh, but you know what? There are so many. There are so many brilliant women doing brilliant work. And men too. I'm not gonna, you guys are, I would love to see more and more collaboration and don't be afraid to get out there and give the world what you got, because we need all of you. And you women out there, happy March Madness Women Month.
And at times, people think that they can't do it. And you know what? We need you all to do it. So that thinking's got to change. And I'm really glad to see that shifting in the chiropractic profession. I'm a huge advocate of that.
And thank you for being one of the supporters of women and giving us a little liberation. So,
well, when your wife's a chiropractor and your mom's a chiropractor,
well,
it fuels it. So I appreciate you acknowledging it, and it's in my blood. I was raised that way. So and thank you. We look forward to seeing you on stage at Mile High, and no facial mask, nothing on your arms, and hopefully fully walking and functioning. We're gonna, that's the plan. June 2nd to 5th. So everybody else, we look forward to seeing you there. Make sure to share this podcast with other like-minded friends, and definitely join us. You can find out more at riseuptomilehigh.com, and it's going to be a phenomenal 10-year anniversary. So we're really grateful to have you grace our stage then, Monika.
I'm ready to go now. So I thank you, because it really means a lot to me, and it's given me something to really to look forward to.
Have a target on the other side of this. Exciting. Well, we'll see you there. Hey, everyone, remember to hit subscribe so you never miss any Mile High ticket. We have an app now, so you can actually download the app and you can get all the podcasts in there. And in addition, you want to make sure to keep your focus on trusting life and changing spines, lives, and minds. Thank you so much for all you do towards that end, Dr. Monika. And we look forward to seeing everybody on Higher Ground in June.